Once again, the Mr. Irrelevant podcast comes your way. I'm your host, Josh Lewin. This is going to be a fun one today or tonight or whenever you're listening to this. I don't know you. The idea is to tell people about origin stories and how really successful, cool people got to be where they were despite some things. There's always a despite in there. And Jill Calhoun is an Emmy Award-winning film editor. Jill, thanks so much for joining us. First of all, I refuse to outsource stuff to AI. I'd rather hear from you what exactly a film editor does or a TV editor does. I can take a stab at it, and you can tell me if I'm close. I mean, I know your post-production. You select the shots, you jigsaw together the proper sequences. You're all about pacing and structure and all of that. I mean, am I close?
Yeah, you're pretty much nailing it.
Well, that's all I got. So, but you, I mean, so all I know is that when I see a lot of movies, film editor comes up about 6th or 7th in the credits, maybe. So there's a basic irrelevance sometimes. Like, I mean, you're doing a lot of work. I mean, you're the director's right arm. I know that much. Is there ever a thought like, wow, I mean, I should be higher up on that, on that role at the end because I do so much work? Or is it just kind of part of the script here that, editors, I mean, you're not the lead on Emmy night. They're not giving your award first.
So to be honest, I mean, I'm sure I don't speak for all editors, but to be honest, I don't mind the collaborative. I think of myself as part of the collaborative with the director. So I'm a little unique from not every editor, but from some editors, because I edit both animation and live action. And I think the exciting part about that is, as an animation, when I'm doing an animated project, I definitely feel when I'm lead or even sometimes second or associate editor, as long as it's a creative collaborative, I feel like I'm also directing a little bit, like you get a pass. And internally, on those projects, I do feel like when you're on the right project with the right team, you feel respected and like appreciated. Now, to the point of your podcast, it does take time to get to the point where you feel respected and appreciated. And I do feel blessed that I've had that. So it doesn't bother me so much, that in the credits we're 8th or whatever. Like, I just, it's like, I know what I've done. My team knows what we've done together. And that, and the final product is really what matters more to me. Like, I don't know that every editor would feel that way, but, and then as far as when I'm doing a live action project, I've been very blessed in the directors I've worked with. It has also been very collaborative. So I always feel like I am above the line in that director's seat, even if it's as an assistant director.
And I would imagine some of these guys and girls that you've worked with, I mean, I know George Lucas was, a long time ago. And for those who don't know, Jill did Howard the Duck back in the mid 80s. I mean, and that was one movie that spoke to me when I was a teenager. Tim Robbins is a duck trapped in a world he never made. I loved that. And so, I mean, I would hope a guy like George Lucas, and you're repping a Star Wars shirt, kudos. I would hope that a guy like that certainly knows that you're not just wind beneath his wings, but like a really integral part of what's happening.
So I wasn't editor on that. I was an assistant Foley artist to Ben Burt. And it was, I was very young. I was 16.
Wow.
Don't do the math, people. Don't do the math.
I'm doing it in my head. Sorry.
I happened to be in Tiburon where Ben Burt lives. My cousin was his neighbor at the time. And it was like, we were visiting my cousin and the adults were drinking wine and having cigarettes. And my cousin and I were like, she was like, let's go next door. And I'm like, okay, I had never met the guy. And we went over there and we started rolling bottles on his back patio and recording with a DAT machine and taking notes. And he's like, I think he could just see that I loved it. And he's like, if you want to hang out. And at the time, my family, we were in San Francisco and then driving down. We had planned this trip to drive down the coast to San Diego and stop on the way to different places. But luckily, my family supported me and allowed me to stay for a couple weeks and work under Ben. And that is how I learned how to do sound design. That was my first exposure to sound design. And, I really fell in love with film and movie making. I loved it before that, but that was really it for me. There was something really magical about being in Tiburon with Ben Burt, and I just loved it.
So once you became not a teenager anymore and you actually were editing and you're working with, I mean, I probably should just stop putting names in your mouth and name dropping, but George Lucas seemed like a big one, so I wanted to lead with it.
I never actually met George, so.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, but it's cool that you're associated with the movie that he directed. I mean, like you're in that doesn't go away. Who are some of the directors, producers even that have kind of shaped you and taught you just how to live with the grace that this position really requires? I mean, it's patience and grace, I think, are two of the biggies when you're a film editor.
So one of my earliest jobs was at Mike Young, which is a mom and pop animation studio. And I worked with a director named Bob Hathcock, and he probably wouldn't believe it hearing his name on here, but I'll never forget him. He was so kind. It was an animated series. And later we did 3 direct-to-DVD movies together. He had been the director of the Smurfs at one point. And even while we were editing, he would get residual checks, even if they were for like 5 cents or whatever. But sometimes they were for more, even though it was many years after. But anyway, he took me under his wing and really taught me, he was kind and patient, and taught me about timing and pacing, and I still remember a throw takes 5 or 6 frames, how to land a joke. Just like he taught me so much and was so good about molding me as an editor. And that timing and the comedic timing that I learned from him really continued to play into my editing, to this day, among other things that helped me become the editor that I am. But he was one person that definitely took me under his wing. And, it wasn't easy getting there, but once I was there, it was like, he was great. So he was the number one guy.
He'll love that you said that. That's cool. So your eye has been sharpened by a lot of different people, a lot of different things. I get that. But I would think that, because you mentioned pacing, I would think that the rhythm of, and I guess it's a visual rhythm. We think rhythm, we think a cadence of like music is rhythm. But I guess visually, there's got to be a rhythm to a movie or some sort of TV series, even in animation, right? I mean, if it gets out of sync, if it gets clunky or chunky, I guess as a viewer or a listener, I would know that. So are there secret sauces? I mean, is there a cadence? Does it run in your head? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's fun that you're asking this question because not many people do. So I have always been a little like, what is the expression? A drummer with your own beat or whatever?
Yeah, that's right.
So I think I just feel it, and it is very rhythmic, like music. And, I started taking music theory when I was 4. I played the piano, like Suzuki method, starting at 4. And I did theater and dance my whole life. And I think that just learning rhythm in that sense and musicality, created this thing in my mind, and then and in my soul where I could just feel where the cuts need to be, or feel when something's not rhythmically right. And whether or not you're born with that or not, I don't know. But I think because I started early on playing with rhythm like that. And then I just remember when I was in high school, I had a class, and the teacher it was an English class, he would have us listen to classical music and write stories that went with the music.
Wow, I love that.
I think that really helped me gain a sense of rhythm also.
So I guess kind of intrinsically in this profession, It's got to be super competitive. I mean, you and I both live in the LA area, and I know, kids are coming out of USC and UCLA and, Loyola Marymount and all these places where they're teaching all kinds of ways to edit and do things and all of that. How difficult is it to, I guess, climb the ladder? Because I would think that, and you mentioned your break, you're 16 years old and you're basically on a Lucasfilm. I mean, that's like incredible. But at some point, are you minimized to the point where you think to yourself, man, I just don't know if I can climb all the way up the ladder?
Oh my gosh, all the time. And I mean, I was 16 when I was on the Lucasfilm, but that did not, I think it's gotten me in some rooms for people like you who are like, oh my God, Howard the Duck, that's hilarious. And then they want to talk to me about it. And that's cool. I love talking about it. And it was a great experience. It has not been like, oh my gosh, you did Howard the Duck, I want to hire you. There has never, it's never happened. But I'm sure it doesn't hurt that it's on my resume, but it doesn't, like I have an Emmy, and like after I got the Emmy, I was like, oh, maybe people will be knocking down my doors. And it doesn't work that way. It is a lot of like, it takes a lot of time to really build a network. And what I found coming from the Midwest, what I've learned, and it took a minute to get here, that forming authentic relationships with people in the industry that you truly feel comfortable with and want to work with is so important. And it's like I had to learn that by, trial and error and working with people where I felt like I was trying to sell myself, or I was like afraid to say no, or, afraid to give my ideas. And like, as I aged in this system and learned more about editing and growing as an editor, but also learning about relationships within the industry, I learned that, if you can start forming authentic relationships early on, that is like, if I was talking to someone graduating from Loyola Marymount right now in film studies who wanted to be an editor, I would be like, keep editing and do the jobs. And like, if you don't feel comfortable with someone, like, don't work with them. Find people you do feel comfortable with, where you don't have to be someone you're not to fit in, because it just isn't worth it. And there's plenty of people out there making stuff. So it's just better to be where you feel comfortable, because that's where you're going to be able to be the most creative.
I want to put a pin in that and come back to it in a minute, because I think that's so important, that whole message of authenticity and to thine own self be true, and trusting the process, as it were. But I am interested, since you brought up the Emmy, and I didn't, by the way, I was going to do it, but I mean, but I'm just curious as to how much that changes your perception of, I know we're told, I heard it, somebody described it once as like, we shouldn't be chasing Scooby snacks, where it's like you just get, here's this little pellet of like, oh, yum, 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 yum. Somebody said I did a good job. That's a Scooby snack, and we shouldn't be chasing it. But come on, it's an Emmy. I mean, how can that not be gratifying? How can that not be kind of like a coronation of, here's all my hard work got recognized? Does that stay with you?
So yes, and yes. The thing I love about the Emmy is it's not like an endpoint to me, like, oh my gosh, I got an Emmy. Okay, yeah, I'm great. It's more like, oh my gosh, I got an Emmy. I need to keep on going, because what's coming next? What can I do next? How can I grow and be even a stronger editor? What stories can I help collaborate in and create to make even more of an impression or a positive impact on people? And like, even very famous editors who are like, you wouldn't believe that they have these moments, but even these famous editors are like, that I've interviewed, on a personal level, just to see, like, do you still at that level worry where your next job's going to be? And they do. So it's like, sometimes, if I'm at the tail end of a project, if I'm feeling flustered or confused, or like, oh shoot, stuck in something, editorially speaking, I can look up at my Emmy, and it does remind me, like, oh yeah, like, I can do this. I've done it. I'm good enough. Even if I'm struggling in this moment, like, it does remind me that. And it's just a reminder. So I love it for that reason. And I feel so blessed that I received this award. And I'm very grateful for the people that voted for me. And like, it does mean a lot to me. And, but it doesn't, I understand also that it doesn't mean necessarily the world, I think someone was just saying they won an Oscar and it just like didn't do anything for them. I don't remember who was talking about that, but it was an actor.
Well, it kind of goes to, I think it goes to what you're talking about regarding, still being your authentic self. Like, I mean, with an Emmy or without an Emmy, you're still Jill Calhoun. You're still doing this great work. So, you don't necessarily need the validation, I guess is the word, until, like you say, I mean, maybe if you're hitting a rough patch or something, if you need that reminder that, oh yeah, you know what? I guess I am pretty good at this. I mean, it's a nice emblem to have, right?
Yes, because I think we all, whatever our roles are in any industry, we all have moments where we feel like, a little lesser than, or like, doubting, self-doubt. And so it is a very beautiful and wonderful reminder, and I'm so grateful for it.
So let me kind of tap in the time we have left to a little bit of that self-doubt arc, because I think we all have it, no matter how successful we are in our chosen fields. There's always somebody, I think, or some voice in the back of our head that just is kind of like, I don't know, right? I mean, so were there literally people along the way that tried to put those obstacles in your way? Maybe they didn't try, but they just made it a little bit more difficult. And how do you swerve around those?
So one of my favorite hilarious stories is, before I moved out here, I was working out with a trainer because I used to do fitness competitions. And I told the trainer I'm moving to LA, and he's like, I give you 3 months.
Wow.
He's like 6 weeks, I bet you're back, but I give you 3 months. And you know what? I'm glad he said that, because I was not moving before 3 months. I needed to make it at least a year just to prove to him that he was wrong. So I kind of used it as fuel, but there were people like that, and also, so that's an example of.
Yeah. But I think the industry in general, though, is kind of like that, right? I mean, it's not much different than, the starving actor who's working at, waiting tables or whatever. I mean, the line is out the door to be an editor too.
Yes. A lot of people it's a lot of competition. That's for sure.
So how do you deal with that competition on your way up? I mean, because again, going back to the whole tent pole of being your authentic self, I guess we can learn from other people. I don't know how much you pay attention to other people. Did you ever say to yourself, oh, I see them doing it that way. Maybe I should reconsider how I'm doing X, whatever it is. I mean, so what's that balance between finding something instructive that can help you and saying, no, I'm doing it my way?
No, absolutely. I actually am not a no, I'm doing it my way kind of person. I have much more of a growth mindset, and I like to propose my way, but if, I'm open to other ways. And, if my way's not working, then I want to find other ways. So I actually, when I moved to LA, I read a book by Ben Stein. And he was another help in guiding me, that book, in guiding me on how to do this. And then, I'm now working with other communities where editors can meet other editors. I've done a lot of cold outreach. I think I just had to get over my fear of reaching out to people and being authentic and reaching out to them, and then interviewing them. How are you doing this? How did you jump from A to Z? What were your action steps that got you there? And then actually taking what they told me and using that in my own life.
So I know you're really into mentoring now, and to me that's just kind of like passing it on, right? I mean, so you take your wisdom, package it, send it to somebody who you think can use it. What, I guess the question is, what made you so good at that? Because I know you are good at that. And why does that resonate with you so much?
Thank you. So you're asking what made me good at being a mentor?
Yeah. How does one become good at passing along wisdom?
I think it's having a gratitude practice and having reached out to so many people. I am so grateful for every single person that has responded to my emails, met me for coffee, talked to me, took me under their wing, and they're like, I felt that way too, to me about being nervous or whatever, or even like, oh, this is how I made this effect happen, or, call me and I'll show you how I did these VFX. Things like that. I'm so grateful for that I only want to be able to pay that forward. I mean, I feel it's so important. I love so much all these people that helped me. I want to return that favor to people that are up and coming. Life is short. And if I can help someone make their life fun and happy and successful in the way that's healthy and good for them, like, I just want to be a part of that. So I think it's just an innate thing. I always did volunteer as a kid too. My parents sort of instilled that in me. So I wonder if that has something to do with it as well.
Yeah. and I don't mean to get super philosophical, but I mean, look, there's when we define success, I guess some of it could be, here's how much money I make, here's how many Emmys I have, and all of that. I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but it just sounds to me like you have a slightly different definition of what a successful person feels like or sounds like. And I mean, if you're good at your job and happy at what you're doing, does that sound like a better definition of success?
Absolutely. And that is something my father taught me. I talked to him. He'd be like, are you having fun? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, then you're doing great. I mean, of course, it's important to be able to pay your bills and everything, too. But I think that success means you have that balance or strategic imbalance, which is what one of my mentors calls it, that helps you get to a place where, that's what success is, when you feel safe, secure, and just like at peace and able to be creative. I mean, and I think true success, I guess, would be whatever your core values are. If you're able to live them, then you're being successful.
Love that. So let me, there's a total leading, almost kind of lazy question to finish up. But, since this is the Mr. Irrelevant podcast, or, Mrs. Irrelevant, Miss Irrelevant, it's all the same. If somebody came to you, you're mentoring somebody at one of those schools that you mentioned earlier, or that I mentioned earlier, and they say to you, Jill, I just don't feel relevant. I just feel like, I don't feel like anybody's paying attention to what I do. I don't feel like I matter. What did you have a go-to? What would you say to someone who expresses that?
Oh my God, I would feel so much empathy for them. I mean, it's very relatable. We all feel that way sometimes. I mean, I truly believe everyone feels that way at some point continuously. Like it's a wave,
Yeah, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not, but yeah.
Exactly. Like sometimes, depending on the project, sometimes I'm like, oh, they just are underestimating me. They don't really believe in me. I think, but that's hard when someone comes to you with that, because it's very serious. And, it's like, I don't want anyone to feel irrelevant. I mean, it's so painful. So I don't have a go-to, and maybe I should. But I think I would probably, explain that I have empathy for that, and that it's relatable, and that, you have to ride the wave. Don't give up. Keep going, because even if right now you're surrounded by people if they're not listening to you, it's okay, because you're going to keep going, and then someone's going to listen to you. Like, it doesn't stay that way forever. And to the same point, when you're with people that listen to you, that will end at some point too. Like it ebbs and flows. So you have to ride the wave and remind yourself that this is not forever.
Yeah, I guess being in LA and being that close to the beach is probably helpful, because it's just I love the metaphor, and I just think it's so true. The waves come in, the waves go out. Some days will be better than others, but that's just, I guess, kind of cycle of life stuff, even professionally. Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's important to have tools that are like, that help you get through the tough times. Like, maybe you have friends that you go out with, or you love bubble baths, or you're reading a good book. Like, it's good to have like a list of things that you can turn to when you're feeling low.
Yeah. 100% agree with that. So, look, I could talk to you for another 40 minutes. They tell me these things should stay under half an hour. So I will let Jill Calhoun go back to doing what she does so beautifully and so well. Emmy Award-winning film editor. But again, kind of the moral of the story here is even without the Emmy, she'd still be a great person and great at what she does. And love the fact that she keeps on paying it forward and teaching people not just the business, but just kind of how to be good to themselves and wait for that chance to break through. So, Jill, can't thank you enough. Continued success. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for taking the time. It's been nice meeting you.
Yeah, same. Love it. All right, and we'll do this again. We'll have more interesting people come by. My name is Josh Lewin. This is the Mr. Irrelevant podcast.